What's the regenerative power supply? While audio is life, the power supply is water. Pure water create the wonderful life. Clean power supply reproduce the beautiful sound. The regenerative power supply, like a proprietary electric generator built in the unit. It can block most disturb from the power line, supply the ultra-clean power supply for the audio amps, reproduce the most neutral and analog sound like audio signal for the system and the users. In the regenerative power supply design, the AC power through the regenerative input transformer, conversion to DC power through the Class A PSU's power supply for the regenerative wave generator and driver stages. The Class A parallel connection PSU has very high input impedance to avoid disturb through the PSU from affecting the degree of purity of the regenerative signal, and it has low output impedance with very fast speed and high linear. It is a very clean power supply. Vacuum valve course of mine. In early of 1990s, the local businessmen bought some warships and took off the parts for sale, but no one bought the vacuum valves, so I can got several hundred kg vacuum valves and start the vacuum valve course. After 15 years built and studied, I was stop build vacuum valve units in 2007. I picked up some experience. 1. Filament must power supply by AC forgot the pure tube-like sound. 2. Never apply electrolytic caps, must apply film caps and cannot apply large capacity caps. 3. Never apply power regulator. 4. Never apply choking coil, it offer the choking coil sound but not tube sound. 5. Must apply the vacuum valve rectifier. 6. Full wave rectification is necessary, but if you looking on our design diagram, the full wave rectification is different to most of others. 7. Nowadays, the sources have high output level, the preamp only need low gain design. 8. The most pure vacuum valve design has the most pure tube-like sound. Instead of making unnecessary features, I spent money on quality audio-grade components. For example, Tacman carbon resistors, Nichicon fine gold capacitors, Wema capacitors, Alps RK27 potentiometer. My friend suggested these components as an experiment. As appeared in future, they make impact on sound quality. I don't know how and why. I thought resistor is just a resistor, but it is not, and Japanese engineers do know something. The Mpingo disc is invented by the Shun Mook team. It is made from a combination of Gaboon and Mpingo ebony, treated with a proprietary process that gives the disc a unique property to regulate the resonance of any sonic component and its transmission. Yet, this is a very simple item to use. Just place 1 to 3 discs on top of your preamp, CD transport, DA converter, turntable, etc., and listen for the wonderful change in your HiFi system. When this disc is excited by any external acoustic energy, it will resonate throughout the entire audible spectrum, thus overriding unwanted harmonic distortions and at the same time enriching the musical reproduction. LP record clamp. A legendary Shun Mook product now being made in a very, very limited number. This record clamp is made from extremely rare pieces of dried ebony briar. This extra-heavy, century-old ebony root, which were immersed in the swamps of Africa, has a unique power that no other wood possesses. The vibration generated by the diamond stylus in the vinyl groove, besides inducing an electroflux through the phono cartridge, also excites the ebony molecules, causing it to resonate. This in turn is feedback through the stylus and is reproduced as expanding sound staging, enhanced separation, sharpened focus, and enriched tonal balance of the music. Due to the rareness of this timber, there is no doubt that it will become a collector item in the future. The Blackbody is unlike any other filter or conditioner. All power filters and conditioners address noise found on the wires, but there's another type of noise altogether. Until now, this inconspicuous type of noise has been largely unacknowledged. It is caused by constant electromagnetic interaction between gear and immediately surrounding objects, stands, racks, nearby signal wiring, enclosures, and other objects containing circuitry or not. This type of radiated noise is not confined to wires. The Blackbody works by changing the spectrum of these stray reflections, effectively solving the problem. Being the only conditioner of its kind, it offers a level of performance previously unattainable. How many blackbodies V2 should be used in a given system? Please note that it is far more important exactly how you set up the blackbodies, rather than exactly where you set them up. The advised mathematics for getting 1 unit for each specific piece of gear is only a general rule meant to exemplify that the larger and more complicated the system, the more blackbodies should be used in order to get more profound results. So once you have these on location, there is nothing to keep you from trying different combinations or numbers of them near each of your specific components. The most important thing to consider is the placement direction and the stand angle. In the northern hemisphere, they should point towards the north. In the northern hemisphere, they should point towards the north. Of subordinate importance is the actual physical location of these units regarding their height and distance from the gear. Imagine viewing your system from an airplane. There will be far greater influence if the blackbodies are facing the airplane rather than whether they are half a meter here or there. The whole house is just a speck on the radar, but the direction from plane to house is very exact, and in fact, the further the plane is from the house, the more exact the direction has to be. So in this way, consider the placement of these units throughout the system in a visually aesthetic way, rather than considering some crucial distance. Remember, direction and angle are paramount, and grounding them is also audibly beneficial, though not entirely necessary. These are beneficial for the whole system. Think of a Christmas tree with ornaments on it. Think of a Christmas tree with ornaments on it. You don't put on a single ornament by counting the branches, or counting exactly how many ornaments you have on each branch. On the contrary, you look at the whole picture and try to spread out the ornaments in a visually appealing way, so that the result is a decorated tree as a whole. In the same way, think about spreading out the blackbodies over the whole system. If you have more units, it will only get better. Even if your system is made up of only a single DAC amp combo and 2 speakers, if you have 5 blackbodies there and then you add 5 more, the results will certainly get even better. There is no doubt about it. So the general rule to be considered is that the more spread out a system is over the space of a listening room, the more blackbodies are recommended in order to provide the maximum effect. Hence, the recommendation of starting with 1 blackbody per component of the entire system. It is recommended to count speakers as 2 components and to also include power distributors in this calculation. About the author. Jeff Cate obtained a bachelor's aerospace engineering from the University of Virginia, theoretical fluid dynamics propulsion, nuclear physics, statistical thermodynamics, indeterminate structures, etc. Undergraduate thesis: design of low-thrust propulsion system for interplanetary travel utilizing momentum transfer mechanics and metal crystal bombarded by high-energy rare gas ions. Work experience: aerodynamics of high-performance aircraft, radio and satellite communications. Brilliant Pebbles is an original concept of Machina Dynamica. Brilliant Pebbles capitalizes on 2 specific properties of mineral crystals. These properties, vibration absorption and radio frequency interference electromagnetic interference absorption, are the consequences of atomic mechanisms in the crystal's highly symmetrical structures, but not necessarily, as we will see below, the consequence of piezoelectricity. Major sources of unwanted acoustic energy are corners of the listening room, where surprisingly high sound pressure levels are produced when music is playing. These levels can actually be 8 to 10 decibels higher than the average sound pressure level in the room, about 8 times higher. Brilliant Pebbles significantly improves dynamic range and lowers distortion of the audio system. In addition to vibration dissipation characteristics, Brilliant Pebbles exhibits RFI EMI absorption characteristics which, like vibration absorption, since pressure requires force of some sort, mechanisms in the crystal, for example, therefore if crystals so without mass, RFI EMI, some other mechanism experience in a great many systems has shown that Brilliant Pebbles crystals can be unpredictable. All Brilliant Pebbles products come in clear, thin plastic Ziploc bags that contain semi-precious and precious stones of various types, each possessing a unique, highly symmetrical crystal structure as well as unique physical properties. Mini and micro Brilliant Pebbles are much smaller than the large size and contain a wider variety of crystal types. All sizes of Brilliant Pebbles function primarily as resonance-controlled devices. but in some locations may act primarily as an RFI EMI absorber. Each size of Brilliant Pebbles has its own set of applications. Highly specialized preparation and assembly procedures contribute significantly to Brilliant Pebbles' effectiveness. Micros can be used in many places effectively, on source components, amps, power supplies, Blu-Tact to HD TVs. Clear and detailed sounding on video emphasizes a cool brightness and unhyped focus. From my limited experience with the crystals, it appears to me in my system that they work anywhere, whether placed on the amplifier, preamp, CD player, DAC, or even on top of power conditioners, the same way. Best at improving imaging and dynamics, enjoyable when placed in the rear corners, enjoyable anywhere. I cannot listen to my system anymore without the Pebbles. Is a natural sound the best sound? You get a glimpse into the designer's ear when you listen to these power cables. For some, it's obvious they actually listen to live music. For others, they seem to use their measurement devices more, or base it on their reference of what's enjoyable. Or they just hire a wire chef. I've heard over 100 audiophile power cables, and they all sound different in their own ways, most of which don't sound natural at all. One thing to keep in mind is, some people don't want natural, they're looking for a more surreal experience. And I've met plenty of these audiophiles. They know it's a fantasy, but they enjoy the sound more. Come to think of it, that was me at some point, and there's nothing wrong with that. After hundreds of hours of listening and percolating through over 200 pages of notes, there were a few themes that came forth. First, there isn't a best power cable for everyone. You'll most likely have to combine a bunch of different ones to get the right balance in a system. So I found it best to consider the power cord as an ingredient rather than a component. Use these impressions as a guide on selecting the power cable that provides the best synergy for your system. Lastly, I have to mention break-in and settling time. Yeah, I wasn't a believer either. A few of these cables sounded very different after a few hundred hours. Interestingly enough, it's only for those first hours. After more subsequent listens, and my notes were consistent again. For what it's worth, most of these power cables sounded the same out of the gate and never changed. Nevertheless, you can't rush judgments in the first few sessions. Yeah, you wouldn't want to do that. The biggest takeaway with this review was to actually spend time with the cable, at least a few days. When you binge on power cables, the context switching may affect your impressions. You'll actually get further, quicker, if you resist the urge of constantly swapping in and out cables. So, instead of going through many cables in one sitting, listen to that cable over a longer period with a variety of music. You'll start to get a better grip of its strengths and weaknesses. Sometimes it grows on you, and sometimes it gets worse. Remember, it's about how your HiFi system makes you feel, and with this knowledge, you'll be able to accept or reject a power cable more confidently. I can't do it anymore.